Live at 5, the 10-year wait for number 10 is over. Gordon Brown becomes Prime Minister and enters Downing Street with a promise to the British people.
I will try my utmost. This is my promise to all of the people of Britain.
It's goodbye from Tony Blair after a tumultuous decade in Downing Street.
Au revoir, auf Wiedersehen and arrivederci.
MPs on all sides give him a rousing send-off as he makes his final appearance at the dispatch box. Now the cabinet contenders line up. Who's set for a top job? And who'll feel the clunking fist first? The challenges ahead. Sky's top correspondents look at the big decisions facing the Prime Minister. And in the week's other big story, the clear-up continues after the devastating downpour, but there could be worse to come. Well, a very good evening. You're watching Live at 5 from Westminster tonight. And it is the night when Gordon Brown finally realised his lifelong ambition. The former Chancellor accepted the Queen's invitation to form a new government this afternoon as Tony Blair formally resigned after 10 years in power. That decade saw him transform the Labour Party's huge electoral fortunes, but suffer major criticism over the war in Iraq. The new man entered number 10, promising a new kind of government with new priorities and a new spirit of public service. Now the focus is going to be on who's in that new government, and the top jobs expected to be announced in the next 24 hours. At long last, it was Prime Minister Gordon Brown. Labour's 6th, the 52nd in British history. With his wife Sarah at his side, Mr. Brown promised to be a listening leader, promising change.
This will be a new government with new priorities. And I have been privileged to have been granted the great opportunity to serve my country. And at all times, I will be strong in purpose, steadfast in will, resolute in action, in the service of what matters to the British people, meeting the concerns and aspirations of our whole country. Change in our schools.
He spoke of a new style of politics, harnessing the best of British.
Trust. I will reach out beyond narrow party interest. I will build a government that uses all the talents. I will invite men and women of goodwill to contribute their energies in a new spirit of public service to make our nation what it can be. And I am convinced that there is no weakness in Britain today that cannot be overcome by the strength of the British people. On this day, I remember words that have stayed with me since my childhood and which matter a great deal to me today. My school motto, I will try my utmost. This is my promise to all of the people of Britain. And now let the work of change begin. Thank you.
The transfer of power couldn't have been smoother, but judging by his words, the contrast in leadership priorities could be sharp. Just hours earlier, Tony Blair was moving out and moving on. After a decade in Downing Street, it came by the chestful. Chattels and achievements, furniture and failures. Was that a spinning machine or just an exercise bike? Personal and political baggage, now the stuff of memories and memoirs. Wearing a cheerful smile and his lucky brogues, Mr. Blair left for his 318th and last Prime Minister's question time. He was planning an elegant exit, but the cries of anti-war protesters along the way offered a reminder of the perils of Iraq, a blot on Mr. Blair's legacy and a warning to Gordon Brown. Inside the chamber, a rare apology and a tribute to the troops.
I've never come across people of such sustained dedication, courage and commitment. I am truly sorry about the dangers that they face today in Iraq and Afghanistan. I know some may think that they face these dangers in vain. I don't, and I never will. I believe they are fighting for the security of this country and the wider world. against people who would destroy our way of life.
Iraq dominated,
If I were the leader of the
but there
Conservative
were
Party, I
lighter
think I would
moments
be
as
worried
the old
about that.
charmer of the chamber dealt with questions on Europe.
I'm afraid we can't agree on the treaty, but as for his good wishes to me, may I say to him, au revoir, auf Wiedersehen and arrivederci.
Faith
I think I'm really not bothered about that one.
and employment,
Surname Blair, first name T.
or rather lack of it.
This form is important to you. Take good care of it. P45.
The tributes poured in on the most civilised day in the Commons anyone could remember.
For all of the heated battles across this dispatch box, for 13 years he has led his party, for 10 years he has led our country, and no one can be in any doubt in terms of the huge efforts he has made in terms of public service.
As the Prime Minister knows, he and I have had a number of disagreements, not least upon Iraq. But in relation to our personal dealings, he has been unfailingly courteous, and I would like to express my gratitude to him for that.
But I want to say that he treated me with the greatest of courtesy. I had many things that I disagreed with him on, but we faced them.
Did it better. They seemed almost sorry to see him go. Back at number 10, there was a private sign-off with staff and advisors before the Blair clan emerged from that famous black door for the very last time. A final family photograph, posing for the feral beasts, as Mr. Blair had recently called the media, and Cherie made it clear she wouldn't miss them either. Then the ultimate duty, to round off his long, long farewell, a trip to the palace to tender his resignation to the Queen. Labour's longest-serving Prime Minister would leave just plain Mr. Blair. With a vacant sign up at number 10, Gordon Brown was wasting no time, clearing out his desk at the Treasury and heading off to take up the job he'd always dreamed of. After all, he's waited 10 years to succeed Tony Blair as Prime Minister. First stop, though, Buckingham Palace. That journey along the Mall a chance to consider the task ahead as Mr. Brown planned a new style of politics. He spent 55 minutes with the Queen accepting her invitation to govern. Gordon Brown emerged as Britain's new Prime Minister. A well-known quantity, but determined to prove he is a man of fresh ideas, a leader for a new political age. Well, back to Mr. Blair just for a moment, and it has now been confirmed that he will be the new Middle East envoy for the quartet of countries who would like him to mediate, to move towards some sort of peace and settlement in the Middle East. So more on Tony Blair in a moment. Let's talk to our political editor, Adam Bolton, first. And Adam, perhaps all this, it does make you wonder whether this really is Gordon Brown's day, or perhaps it still is one for Tony Blair.
I certainly think the send-off for Tony Blair was remarkable. If you compare this with the last time that a Prime Minister was changed without a general election, the departure of Margaret Thatcher, there were certainly many more bitter feelings about her amongst her opponents, and much more bitterness amongst Conservatives, which led to a lengthy split in the party. Gordon Brown has achieved what he wanted, which is what he calls an orderly and dignified transition, a bloodless handover, leaving at the moment the governing Labour Party apparently united, agreeing that they have to change, but also seeing that in the context of building on the 10 years that have gone before. Now, we've just had it confirmed that Gordon Brown and David Cameron did have a conversation on the telephone about 10 minutes ago. Of course, also on the phone to Gordon Brown, Nicolas Sarkozy, the French president, and first the American president. So we are in a new era, but for Gordon Brown, again confirmed by opinion polls today, the good news is that it appears to be an era where he has a fighting chance, where at the moment David Cameron's Conservatives and Gordon Brown's Labour Party are neck and neck.
Adam, we're just to bring the listeners and the viewers right up to date with what's going on. We're hearing from our Sky sources now that Margaret Beckett will not continue as the Foreign Secretary. What do you make of that, Adam?
Well, Margaret Beckett, of course, is the senior member of this government. Her service goes back to the Wilson and Callaghan years as a minister, but she's been there a very long time indeed. She occupies a high-profile post, and clearly what Gordon Brown is trying to do is to give a fresh look to his government at the top, and so Margaret Beckett has been asked to step aside. I think, having been Foreign Secretary, it's unlikely that she will want to stay in the government, although I can't speak from her. Certainly Margaret Beckett today genuinely moved and upset by the departure of Tony Blair. She was seen in tears leaving Prime Minister's questions, being comforted by John Reid, rather more dry-eyed about his own personal decision to step down from the government as Home Secretary.
Adam, back to you for more in a moment, but right now a new kind of government with new priorities. Gordon Brown's promise as he entered Downing Street as Prime Minister this afternoon. But what does that actually mean, and who are the people likely to be charged with delivering Brown's New Britain? Sky's Joey Jones has been finding out.
There's something in the air at Westminster, across the country.
I think I've got about 4 minutes left.
This is what change feels like. Since 1997, we've had the small matter of 2 general elections, and yet only today comes a real sense of a shift in the balance of power. So, after an extremely long chat with the Queen, this is Gordon Brown turning back into Downing Street for the first time as Prime Minister. This is, after all, just a shift that we're seeing in the Labour leadership, but it will have a radical impact on the climate of British politics. New policies will come, and soon. They won't satisfy everyone. Critics of the war in Iraq aren't going anywhere. But Gordon Brown wants to shift the focus onto other issues. Will there be surprises? Personnel and policy?
I think there'll be a lot of surprises, actually. I think people should prepare the way, because I think he will be planning this for a long time, and he is a supreme strategist. So I think we'll see a lot of change underway and an awful lot of really exciting developments.
Keep up the good work.
And those developments will involve a new government, of course. John Cruddas here, who ran a formidable deputy leadership campaign, is one of those hoping to be brought into the fold. Others affect not to be too bothered.
Well, in politics, at this level, you're not masters or mistresses of your own destiny. It's up to other people to make decisions. But certainly what I have at the centre of all my politics is that I'm the MP for Salford.
The funny thing is, for all the media hype surrounding this event, not one of the current generation of big Labour hitters has come down here to speak to journalists. And you know why that is? Well, they're all sitting in their offices, waiting by the phone, hoping Gordon Brown will give them a job. Only those stepping back from the fray could afford to look relaxed.
And then, of course, for others, the excitement of waiting in the phone call, or Gordon and choosing his cabinet.
Excitement, that's one way of putting it.
Well, it is a very exciting time for people. There's no greater privilege than being asked to serve your country. And in the next 24, 48 hours, the new Prime Minister, Gordon, will choose the people that he thinks are fit to serve the people of this country. You've got to meet a pretty high standard to do that.
It could be too early for Tory defector Quentin Davies to think about getting a government position, but he's certainly given David Cameron a headache. And the Conservative leader's problems were underlined by a Sky News poll published today, which showed Brown's Labour snapping at his heels.
It's the Conservative Party that's been setting the agenda over this past year on the NHS, fighting to save our hospitals, on the environment, pushing that up the agenda. We're the ones coming up with the exciting and inspiring ideas for the future of our country. That is the role that we will play. I don't believe Gordon Brown can be the change Britain needs. He's the author of so many of our problems. He's been in the heart of the government for the last 10 years. People should have a chance to vote for change, and that should mean in a general election.
Tory and Labour, they'll be watching the front door of Downing Street for comings and goings as the new administration takes shape. There's a long night ahead, but after a 2-month hiatus, real politics has started in earnest again. Joey Jones, Sky News, Westminster.
We're down here at Westminster. You can see the weather's in and out all day. Hard to tell. The weather vein, but what about the political vein today? Jackie Smith, Chief Whip, with me. Who's in, who's out? You still got a job? You still Chief Whip?
Look, what's important is that today we've seen a transition from Tony Blair to Gordon Brown, as he said on the doorsteps of Number 10, the opportunity to really take on the new challenges of the country with the new government that he's going to lead. And who's in that government, of course, is up to him.
Doesn't sound like someone who's still got the same job. If you hadn't, I'd have thought you'd just said, yes, I'm delighted to be serving him.
It's the job of the Prime Minister to decide who's in government, and I suspect that's one of the things he's thinking about at the moment. But, frankly, a more important thing than who's in, who's out is actually what we're going to be able to do with Gordon Brown in charge. And he made very clear, his commitment to dealing with the new challenges, that particularly some of those things he's been listening to over the last few weeks whilst he's been able to get out and about around the country. The challenge of changing the NHS and in education, for affordable housing, how we can build on our British way of life. And I think he showed the sort of commitment today to making sure that we can take those things forward.
The faces that line up alongside him, people will watch, because in there are signs of the direction he's going to take it in, the sort of people he trusts to take the country forward and deliver those priorities he talked about.
Of course there's an interest in who those people are going to be, but as I say, it's for the Prime Minister to decide. What I thought was interesting was that he did once again very clearly say that his would be a government of all the talents, and in fact in dealing with those challenges that he'd go beyond party politics, beyond what he called the old politics, bringing in the people that will really be able to make a contribution to changing the country. And I think that's very good, that's very positive. The British people expect us as a government to make the best of the resource and the talent in this country, and that's what Gordon is determined to do.
Have you had a call from him yet?
No, I haven't.
You hoping? Fingers crossed? Or are you happy with what you've done up to now in government?
It's been a fantastic honour to serve in a Labour government. I would be delighted to carry on serving, but that is up to Gordon, the Prime Minister.
He talked an awful lot about change today. In that, some may say it's implicit criticism of the government of Tony Blair.
No, what he said was, I think there is an opportunity, it is a new start, a new Prime Minister, new challenges that he's been able to think about and listen to the British people talking to him about in the last 8 weeks. Times move on. We do have new challenges in the health service. We do have new challenges, as he said, to provide affordable housing, new ways in which we need to strengthen the British way of life. It's because he's been able to listen, it's because he's been able to bring that renewed energy to government that we'll be able to take on those new challenges.
Chief Whip, until today, we'll find out about the future. Jackie Smith, thank you very much indeed. Adam Bolton, our political editor in Downing Street. You probably won't be quite as coy about who's in and who's out. What you think of it, Adam?
No, I'll tell you one thing, I don't think Jackie Smith's got much to worry about. Gordon Brown
Adam thinks you haven't got much to worry about, Jackie Smith.
Thank you, Adam.
That's good. Well done, Adam.
Gordon Brown is looking to promote women, but the rumours we picked up on so far are of some fairly prominent female casualties. Patricia Hewitt has told her staff this afternoon that she doesn't expect to continue as Health Secretary. We are also hearing that Gordon Brown has grasped the nettle of moving Margaret Beckett from the Foreign Office, although I hasten to say that is rumour. So he will need to be promoting women, and the names that people are talking about are things like Jackie Smith and Yvette Cooper and perhaps Caroline Flint, a lot of those. Also, lots of other speculation, effectively amounting, as far as we can tell, to changes in all the top jobs in the party. There's got to be a change in Chancellor, obviously, because Gordon Brown has moved up. Deputy Leader, we know about that. Harriet Harman's a new face there. Home Office, got to be a new face there because John Reid has resigned voluntarily. Now the Foreign Office. So what we're seeing is Gordon Brown certainly putting new faces in new jobs. Speculation at the moment, David Miliband may be the man going to the Foreign Office. That would mean that the high-profile job of environment, possibly coupled with energy, is open, and Ed Bull's being talked about there. Now the plan is to keep this under wraps and to announce it in an orderly fashion tomorrow. We've heard this word orderly a lot already from the Brown government. Whether they manage that or not remains to be seen, and we'll be here to give you the latest even before that announcement comes.
Adam, just a quick word. We're hearing it, it's on the screen, that Blair has resigned as an MP. He has applied to join the Chiltern Hundreds. a fairly archaic and arcane title. Just explain as simply as you can what it means and where he goes.
Well, basically, if you're an MP, the way you get out of it is by applying for the stewardship of 2 notional constituencies. The most famous one is the Chiltern Hundreds. That's a gift in the royal household, which means that technically, because you're working in the royal household, you can't be in Parliament. So that's a way of saying you've resigned as an MP. What it means is there'll be a by-election, and according to this timetable, it clearly shows, as we were saying early on, that Labour is going for a rapid turnover in Sedgefield with a new low-profile MP in place by the end of July. There's also a by-election expected by the end of July in London Southall following the death of the incumbent MP.
Thanks, Adam. Back to you in a while. Well, for one last time, Tony Blair and his family gathered on the steps of Downing Street today. After 10 years in power, much has changed, of course, since they first arrived, to rapturous applause and flag waving. You remember it now, I'm sure. Well, let's get the views of Westminster watchers today. Journalist Nick Jones with me, along with Kevin Maguire, Associate Editor of the Mirror. Evening, gents.
Evening.
Nick, I mean, a real contrast, wasn't it? A rather stern Gordon Brown 10 years down the line.
Yes, there he is, walking into Downing Street, getting out of the car. None of the razzmatazz and the flags and the choreography of the Blair years 10 years ago. And what do we get from Brown? That stern little speech from him. He's going to be strong, steadfast, resolute.
A man of school mottos.
And he gave his school motto as well. Yes, he's not going to be the man we're going to have that emotional relationship. It's not it wasn't the tearjerker that Blair's arrival was, and I think that's going to be the difference. I don't think that Brown wants us to have an emotional relationship with him.
Do you think, Kevin, that he's really trying to draw a big line in the sand and say, I'm a different man, I've got different priorities, forget the past to a large extent, I'm a new face even though you know me?
That's why he made a different speech. He changed the speech. If he tried to be Tony Blair of 10 years ago and handed out Union Jack flags to be waved by party workers, we'd all say, look at that spin, and we'd all be cynical. So you can't do that. So if you come across as rather straightforward, I'm going to roll my sleeves up, get in there, fight on your behalf, you're emphasising the change. And he promised us a lot of change. He promised change in health, in schools, how politics happens itself. And that speech, it was relatively low-key, and it was intentionally so, to emphasise that change.
And do you think the public will buy into it? Do you think they'll think, a man of substance at last?
Well, he has set out some challenges which are connecting with the public, aren't we? The question of affordable housing, the fact that young couples can't get houses. He's acknowledged the failures in the hospitals and education. He's acknowledged that the politicians have lost trust. So we're going to be watching to see whether he actually does any of the things that he's promised. Is he going to make Parliament behind us more accountable? Will the government be more accountable? Will he try to restore independence and credibility to the civil service? There are a lot of tests which we Westminster watchers are going to use when it comes to judging whether or not he's actually delivering on that very highly principled speech that he gave us.
The real test will be in health, in the economy, in crime, in schools, in politics itself. But he's got to set himself out as separate to Tony Blair. There's no point trying to be Tony Blair Mark II, a shadow of Tony Blair, but he's also got to define himself against David Cameron. Yeah. All David Cameron has offered is change, and that change is himself, David Cameron. So Gordon Brown is trying to show himself as substance. He won't smile as much as David Cameron. We'll never catch him on a bike. I don't think he'll go around the country collecting bits of rubbish and putting it in bins for the cameras. But if he rolls his sleeves up and he makes schools better, hospitals better, that's what the public will want.
That's right.
Kevin, Nick, great. Thank you very much indeed. Views coming in all the time right here on Live at 5 on Gordon Brown's day, the day he became Prime Minister. You're watching Live at 5 on our website, sky.com/news. Behind every strong man, well, find out more about the new PM's wife and family. Also coming up, friends in high places. We talk to Brown's close supporter, Geoffrey Robinson. And later, that's the end. That's it. How Tony Blair wrapped up his premiership.
In the old days, if you fancied watching something half decent, you had to sit down when the newspaper told you. Then Sky Plus bowled into your life and that all changed. Now you watched quality stuff whenever you felt like it. Fast forward to 2007 and you clock this thing called Anytime on your TV guide. Get in, you chirp. See, Anytime brings you a tasty bunch of shows via Sky Plus and HD that you might just want to discover. Sky Anytime. Your Sky on demand.
With the option of 7 seats and on-demand all-wheel drive, it's a premium SUV without the premium. The Chevrolet Captiva range from $16,995.
If you want to make a miracle happen, please get ready to call this number. Every minute, somewhere in the developing world, a child goes blind. It's hard enough growing up in poverty and hunger. It's even harder when you can't see. Small wonder over half of these children will die as a result of blindness and poverty. And yet for thousands of children with cataracts, the simplest operation can cure them. Just £2 a month to Sightsavers can give the gift of sight. For over 50 years, we've been working in the world's poorest countries, doing one simple thing: saving people's sight. So far, we've helped over 50 million children and adults. Please, help us save one more person's sight by calling 0800 089 2020 now. Just £2 a month can pay for a simple cataract operation. It can provide vital equipment. It can give children a future. To this child, it's a miracle. A miracle that costs just £2 a month. So please do something wonderful today. Give the gift of sight by calling Sightsavers on 0800 089 2020. That's 0800 089 2020. Thank you.
So, a new era in British politics is underway tonight with Gordon Brown at number 10. Here's how the day developed.
Details of employee leaving work. Surname Blair, first name T. It said actually Mr., Mrs., Miss or other. This form is important to you. Take good care of it. P45.
For 13 years he has led his party, for 10 years he has led our country, and no one can be in any doubt in terms of the huge efforts he has made in terms of public service.
As the Prime Minister knows, he and I have had a number of disagreements, not least upon Iraq. But in relation to our personal dealings, he has been unfailingly courteous, and I would like to express my gratitude to him for that.
He's entered on another colossal task. I hope that what happened in Northern Ireland will be repeated, and at the end of the day he'll be able to look back and say it was.
I will try my utmost. This is my promise to all of the people of Britain. And now let the work of change begin. Thank you.
Behind that door at last. Well, let's just go back to the other big figure today, Tony Blair, saying farewell as an MP. We know that he's signing off now, and he's going up to Sedgefield in the next hour to tell his constituency up there, people he voted into power, people he served for the last 24 years. The reason he's standing down is because it's now been confirmed that he is going to be Middle East envoy to the Quartet. Now let's talk to Tim Marshall, our Foreign Affairs editor, to explain a bit more about the task that now seems to have firmed up in the last hour.
We got it about 5 to the hour, definitely, that the European Union had signed on to this. They're one of the 4 bodies: Russia, the United States, the European Union. The job, I am told, is not what James Wolferson's job was as being head of this quartet. It is specifically that Mr. Blair will try and help the Palestinians to build a viable Palestinian state. In order to do that, he has to talk to the Israelis. So he's going to concentrate on a Palestinian state, not at the beginning on trying to get the Middle East roadmap and the whole peace process and the whole final status agreement going. Not that. Much more specific, much more focused on a Palestinian state. He will take offices in Jerusalem. I'm told that he'll be over there fairly shortly. Wouldn't specify, but I got the idea within weeks he'll be over there. And also what we've heard this afternoon is he's already been on the phone to King of Jordan, the King of Saudi Arabia, President Mubarak of Egypt, President Abbas of the Palestinians, and the Prime Minister of Israel, Ehud Olmert. And all five of them apparently said to Mr. Blair, we welcome you, we look forward to doing business with you. So he's got a massive job, but he's up and running.
Just a quick word on Margaret Beckett, because I know Adam down at Downing Street is itching to tell us more in a second, but just a thought on that. Looks like she's not going to be staying.
Again, about 10 to the hour, our Sky sources said they wouldn't go as far as to say who will replace her. They simply said she will not be Foreign Secretary under a Gordon Brown government. I wouldn't say that's a huge surprise, and we've got our own ideas on who will be, and perhaps Adam's going to be closer to that.
Jolly good. Thanks very much, Tim. As I promised you, straight over to Adam Bolton at Downing Street. What have you been hearing, Adam?
Well, the Prime Minister's spokesman, he's now going to be called the Prime Minister's spokesman. They're taking out the official because they took the view that that suggested there was also an unofficial spokesman, has been giving some outline of what's been going on in there. And one of the things he said is that Margaret Beckett remains Foreign Secretary until and unless somebody else is appointed, which I think confirms what Tim was saying to you. I think the favourite for that post at the moment is David Miliband, but remember Jack Straw will be a fairly senior member of this government. He certainly enjoyed being Foreign Secretary before Tony Blair moved him. Some other useful information on what Gordon Brown has been up to. We saw him being clapped in through the door. The first thing he did was to go and see the Cabinet Secretary, Sir Gus O'Donnell, and his first act as Prime Minister, and this is clearly symbolic, was to revoke the powers of special advisors to give orders to civil servants. That notorious order in council was what allowed Alistair Campbell and his Tony Blair's Chief of Staff, Jonathan Powell, to be the most senior members of the appointed government. That's gone. Civil servants are back on top, as it were, at least as far as the semblance goes. What then happened was that Mr. Brown had a number of telephone calls. First of all with George Bush, that lasted for 10 minutes, then with Nicolas Sarkozy of France, with Bertie Ahern of Ireland, Angela Merkel of Germany, current president of the EU, Romano Prodi of Italy, and also he had conversations which are described as courteous and businesslike with both David Cameron and Sir Mingus Campbell. Now, we've been given an outline of the timetable for the next few days. The intention is to appoint the government over the next 36 hours. Tomorrow we will hear about the cabinet appointments. Those are the top 22 appointments. The next day we'll hear about the rest of the government, and that is when we are told we will hear about this government of all the talents. So in other words, we're not expecting an outsider to be in the cabinet, but in the middle and junior ranks of the government. Mr. Brown already also committed himself to continue the appearances with the liaison committee and to give regular press conferences, obviously following on from Tony Blair's monthly press conferences. So an outline, I think, of a slightly more sober, slightly more methodical, civil service-led administration. All part of what Gordon Brown, standing here, said was the need to try and restore trust in the government.
Thanks a lot, Adam. Back to you later for more tidbits as they start to emerge from the new government of Gordon Brown. Well, with the top job comes the big decisions, of course, and our correspondents have been looking at the challenges Gordon Brown must face as the new Prime Minister.
The new man has a difficult trick to perform: distance himself from the war on terror while still prosecuting it under a different name. He will fight it using the military, the intelligence services, and economics. Because Gordon Brown is an Atlanticist, agreeing with Tony Blair that the UK must stand shoulder to shoulder with the United States. What he won't do is make jokes with US presidents about sharing the same toothpaste. Gordon Brown was part of the process which took us to war in Iraq, and it's unlikely he'll pull all the British troops out for several years. On Israel and Palestine, he's already used a new term calling for a Middle East economic roadmap. So there'll be more money for more countries, more money for MI5 and MI6, and there'll be more of the same for the UK. The war on terror will continue. It just won't be called that anymore.
As far as the special relationship with Washington's concerned, the timing of Gordon Brown's succession could be better. This current president, languishing in his own polls, has little to offer a new international partner at this stage in his game. Certainly from a British point of view, hearty handshakes with George Bush hold no currency. The president's all-take and no-give history with Tony Blair makes any new association politically risky. Add to that next year's US election with its certainty of change, but uncertainty yet of result. Much more than his predecessor, Gordon Brown has an under-publicized affection for this country. He visits often and has lots of friends here. So expect him to keep his powder dry until they elect a new successor to the White House, someone to cultivate for a longer-term relationship with the greater possibility of reward.
Gordon Brown's biggest environmental challenge is going to be energy. He has to decide whether to push the nuclear button and start a new generation of nuclear power stations. Planning is going to be an issue, as it will be for renewable energies as well. But he's going to have to get going on them if he's to meet the government's targets. Then he'll have to work on driving changes in our green behaviour. Do you tax us out of our bad habits or try to coax us out of them? Air passenger duty, road pricing, bin taxes, all controversial. Then there are the negotiations to reach a global Green Deal. With the Kyoto Protocol about to expire, but a change of heart in the White House, Gordon Brown has a chance to shape the diplomacy. But he'll have to get Britain's house in order. Carbon dioxide emission levels are rising here.
Whatever Gordon Brown's hopes and ambitions as Prime Minister, the first few months are almost certain to be dominated by what happens here. The future of Europe is one of those issues that every Prime Minister must just hope would disappear. And for Gordon Brown, it promises to be a rough ride. There is a feeling that France and Germany, with dynamic new leaders in Sarkozy and Merkel, are trying to drive Europe forward. And they're waiting to see what kind of leader Mr. Brown will be. The impression is that he's slightly suspicious of Europe, certainly from his time as Chancellor, and a real contrast to Mr. Blair and his love for everything European. He knows that too much enthusiasm for what goes on here risks turning public opinion at home, and the Conservatives know that as well. And there's always the looming shadow of the R word, a referendum, and that's enough to send a chill down his spine.
You're watching Sky News Live at 5 on our website, sky.com/news. The flood chaos continues. Do send us your photos and videos. Keep them coming wherever you are. Also coming up, the hard work starts here, the challenges facing Gordon Brown.
Hi. Nice car.
Thanks. Do you know what? We should get married. Buy a house, have some kids, get a dog, and spend the rest of our lives together.
Okay.
The new Kia Ceed with a 7-year warranty. Now that's a quality commitment.
This one's for all those people out there who feel like they have a big mortgage. NatWest One simply combines your mortgage with your current account. Depending on how much you leave in your account each month and the size of your mortgage, you could seriously shrink it, making you incredible savings and knocking years off. To find out how many years you could shrink your mortgage by, call us now on 0800 408 2532. That's 0800 408 2532. Or go to natwest.com/shrinker.
Every day, 9-year-old Aditsa makes the hour-long journey to fetch water from the river.
What she carries back is equal to half her body weight. You can sponsor a child like Aditsa for just 60p a day, but what you feel in return is priceless.
Just to provide clean water, I do feel a sense of pride that these small contributions that I'm making of making such a difference to somebody else's life.
What will you feel when you sponsor a child with World Vision? Call 0800 50 1010 now or visit sponsor.org.
All you gotta do is go pick up a kid down in Jersey. That can't be that hard now, can it? Manufactured!
Die Hard 4.0 in cinemas July 4.
What the hell is going on here?
Action stations.
Jack. Hello, Jack.
Wow.
We can say that again.
NASA never tried this. Trust me.
Welcome to Live at 5. We're down in Westminster today on a historic and dramatic day for British politics. With me now, someone who knows the new Prime Minister very well, Labour MP, former Paymaster General and friend of PM's, Geoffrey Robinson. Very good to see you. Why are you such a big fan of Gordon Brown?
Because he's a very fine man. He's a very determined man. He's a very intelligent man. I don't know how many adjectives I'm expected to use here. Let me just say, I think he's devoted his life in some ways to equipping himself to be Prime Minister. I'm delighted that he's made it, and I think he'll do a very good job of it. So that's the answer to the question.
Well equipped, but I guess however well equipped you are, you still have to sell yourself to the nation.
Yes, yeah, I think he will. I mean, give him a chance. Look, the guy's been 10 years Chancellor of the Exchequer, the worst job in the world.
Plenty of
5 years. No, listen. 5 years he's been in the shadow position, the same kind of shadow Chancellor. 15 years he's come out sane. The economy's booming, still doing well. What more do you want? Now, at the same time as that, he's meant to sell himself in some ways a great charismatic politician. It just doesn't stack up to me. Give him his chance. He's got it now. Let's see what sort of fist he can make of it. I think he'll make a very good one.
What sort of jobs are you going to offer you, do you think?
I don't want one. No, I mean, absolutely clear. I'm so delighted to come. The only purpose for which I came on your programme, and the only reason why I came on your programme was to say, I am not accepting any job of any kind, nor has he offered me one. I didn't at all in his mind to do so. I don't want one. Thank you very much.
Tell me, what have you made of the day, though? How important is this?
Well, I thought it was a marvellous day for British democracy. Perhaps you don't share that, but to see two men shake hands on Sunday, see the exchange of questions with Tony today, and then see Tony go off, I thought it was a tremendous show to the whole world of how you can organise the governance of a country. I thought it was terrific.
But a lot of people will genuinely say, well, it wasn't very democratic because we, the public, didn't vote. It was just a few people in the Labour Party who voted for this changeover.
Yeah.
How do you address that one?
I don't think it's a big issue, to be honest, because it's been the case right this way our democracy works. I don't think it's a big issue. He is there. He's been elected. Can't get much better than he did. Nem con, I think the phrase is. I don't think that is really the issue. The issue now is the Labour Party, which was elected with a mandate for 5 years, has shown to the people of this country how it can, in a very responsible way, in a very impressive way, organise a changeover between one Prime Minister and another. I mean, just look at the mess that Thatcher was in. Look at the colossal defeats of Major. Look at the huge mess of Heath with with a 3-day week. And here you see, country doing well, two men in their prime, one handing over to the other.
Are we going to see, though, a very different style of government, a very different set of targets? I mean, is this a real line in the sand between the two men?
I think there'll be some differences, obviously. Gordon is more serious, he's more deep thinking. He will want to show that spin is something of the past. He'll want to show that trust is preeminently important, and he's intent and will regain that from the country. So in all those ways it will be different. And I think that we will see too that we'll have a new face to the whole of the cabinet, and that will be very welcome because people feel you need new vigour for the government of the country. So I think in all those ways he'll make a big difference.
Geoffrey Robinson, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Well, an extraordinary farewell for the former Prime Minister, Tony Blair, today in the House of Commons, and there'll probably be an equally extraordinary farewell up in Trimdon in the Sedgefield constituency. Our man Gerald Tubbs up there at the moment, the former Prime Minister, the newly appointed envoy to the Middle East, due to arrive fairly shortly, Gerard.
Yeah, and to no surprise here, of course, because you can see what's happened over the last few months. You certainly wouldn't have to be too cynical to see it as his last piece of media manipulation, of news management, of New Labour spin. It was leaked that he would be standing down as an MP. It was denied by Number 10. It's still denied. Oh, we didn't know it was going to happen. They're still saying he only made his mind up last week. Nonetheless, of course, when the news finally does come out, yes, he is standing down as MP, everyone says, well, we knew about that anyway. Classic news management. And so people here saying, well, nothing really changes. We knew it was going to happen. Let it roll on. But, you know, things have changed here, all sorts. The grass isn't cut under my feet. And it's the first time I can remember being here when Tony Blair's come up, and all the media have been here, that the grass hasn't been cut just before he arrived. The police presence is down today on his usual visits. And I've just been talking to his agent, John Burton, who didn't know what was going on. He said, I don't know when Tony's going to be here. I used to be able to ring Number 10, he said, and they'd tell me straight away, I'm not allowed to do it anymore. So things really are changing. And we possibly have the name of the son and heir of Tony Blair in Sedgefield, a man by the name of Philip Wilson, Labour Party guy, local from here, worked at Number 10. He's worked at Labour Party headquarters in London as well, now in advertising and PR, I understand. He will be at the meeting here tonight, and I'm told he would have a good chance of being the new Labour Party candidate for here if he decided to stand.
Gerald, thanks very much. Back to Sedgefield shortly when Tony Blair arrives there. Let's take you away from politics and a little further south from where Gerard is into Yorkshire, where the floods have been continuing to cause such chaos across that part of the country and many others. A county court judge was amongst those killed by rising floodwaters today, and there are fears that there's more rain to come. Sky's Jane Secker has the story.
Roads turn to rivers, fields turn to lakes. In some parts of the country, the water just keeps on coming.
2 days after the deluge, and Tolbar to the north of Doncaster, rising groundwater is still a problem. 90% of the homes down there are underwater.
The emergency services are carrying out patrols of houses and cars by boat to check no one is trapped. But they've spent much of the day here searching for a man who's believed to have fallen into a flooded dike nearby.
I was round the back of the farm when 3 of us heard a noise of somebody falling in the dike, which is a field behind our house, and they screamed and shouted, "Help, I've fallen in the dike." And then we didn't hear any more. And it's too flooded for me to go and look, so I rang the emergency services.
The water is also still deep in Catcliffe, south of Sheffield, which was evacuated 2 nights ago. Hundreds who live here are still in temporary accommodation, while the gash in the Ully Dam upriver is being patched with plastic sheeting, overlaid with tons of hardcore and rubble.
From the air, you really get a feel for the geography of this valley. At the very top, the Ully Dam. The engineers are still hard at work there trying to shore that up. Below it, hundreds of people's homes, and it's clear to see the damage that would be caused if the engineers don't succeed in their task.
And it's not just South Yorkshire that's affected. In Worcester, they've not seen flooding like it since 1969. This is the only way to get around the city's racecourse, now under 10 feet of water.
It's summer and we've got a flood. Might as well take advantage of it. It's a nice place to paddle.
In Powick, 8 miles south of Worcester, there was a rude awakening for 30 villagers who were rescued by the fire service in the early hours.
Dreadful. It was such a shock. You don't know what to do when it hits you. There was devastation. It's devastation.
Overall, though, the floodwaters do appear to be falling, and the long task of cleaning up the debris left behind has begun in Sheffield.
The waters that had divided this city in two are now starting to recede, but the Meadowhall shopping centre just down there is still closed for a second day, and the M1 motorway to the east of the city is eerily quiet.
Almost 20,000 people are still without power. Emergency aid is being offered to the worst affected areas. The sincere hope here is that the worst is now over, but with more rain forecast for the weekend, no one is taking any chances. Jane Secker, Sky News, Sheffield.
Back to politics, and as Gordon Brown settles into number 10, a new poll carried out by Sky News and YouGov will make pretty encouraging reading. The poll puts the Tories under David Cameron at 37%, but Labour's ratings under Gordon Brown have jumped 4% to some 36%. Ming Campbell's Lib Dems still in the doldrums on 12%. When it comes to Gordon Brown versus David Cameron, the signs in our poll are good for the new Prime Minister. He ranks higher than his Tory rival on trust and on leadership. Those polled thought that he would be better at running the NHS, the economy and education policy, three things he mentioned today. But there is some comfort for David Cameron. He's ahead on charisma, according to that poll. Well, let's get a view of a bookie now. Ed Powell, we tend to see you on days like this. Tell us what at the top you're saying. If there was election today, what are the odds?
Very tight indeed, to be honest. Almost as tight as it can be without them being the same odds. Tories 8 to 11, Labour evens. That has come in. Labour have come in there. They were about 11 to 10 this morning with all the Labour euphoria and going over what they've done in the past. It reminds people what they've done in the past. So a bit of a move for Labour today. Tories doing OK, they're still just favourites, but that's often the case in mid-term, to be honest, or if we're presuming it's mid-term. How long Brown will last is more interesting. We're basically saying here the odds are suggesting he's either going to last just a couple of years or last 4 years or more, and those are the two favourites. They're 2 to 1 for him to last 4 years or more. I prefer 2 years at 7-4, just making that favourite, that he'll just come in. Your next election will be in a couple of years' time, and he may well lose that according to these odds at the moment.
Interesting, but it's still it's either 2 or 4 plus.
Exactly. Very hard to call. Because
anybody putting money on 10 years to match Blair?
I think that I would give you very decent odds on that, at least 25s plus.
I'll see you later on that one.
Yeah.
Now, what about the timing of the next election?
Well, this is very hard to call. I mean, I think 2007, obviously the outsider is going to call a snap election this year, but only 8 to 1. It's no 100 to 1 shot. I don't think that'll happen. The next one, 2008, 3 to 1 shot, possible that next year, if he gets a bit of momentum going, want to cause an early one to get in that extra 4 years. I think personally 2009 is the favourite, 7 to 4 favourite, but joint favourite with 2010 plus. So I think if you're having a bet, the sensible thing is to take 2010 plus because you've got more years behind you, but 2009, a tricky one to avoid, I think.
I mean, a changeover like this is a bookie's dream, isn't it? I mean, it does give you lots of new pegs to hang bets on.
Of course it does. It's absolutely wonderful for us. Everything from what tie he's going to wear on his first Prime Minister's Question Time to the more serious, how long will he last? But this is the one that's causing the most interest in the offices at the moment. How long will he last? Is he going to be a quick one or stay for ages? I think 10 years is a little bit bullish, but I think 4 plus is not unusual.
Are they really only interested in him, or do you find that they're quite interested in filling up those cabinet seats?
Definitely. I mean, certainly the Deputy Prime Minister was a very, very hard-fought battle in the betting terms, and a bit of a surprise as it turned out. But certainly, as each post comes up, the betting for those gets more and more furious. People are moving away from traditional betting on sort of, horse racing and greyhounds now. They love the politics because there's so much coverage. I mean, yourselves almost blanket today, and it gives people an interest. Why not have a couple of quid if you're such an expert? Then they're taking your advice.
So Alistair Darling as the new Chancellor to take over Gordon Brown. I mean, it's hardly a leak. It's more like a South Yorkshire flood at the moment. So I assume you've closed the books on that.
I'm afraid we've had to, yeah. I mean, we've got very strong warnings from that very early on. People always make the mistake of trying to get too much money on too early. They want £10,000 on Darling. We then know something's up. The clever thing to do if you want to pull off a gamble is have 100 quid every 10 minutes or so and keep the bets coming in rather than lumping in straight away, because that makes us smell a rat immediately.
Ed, thank you very much. Ed Powell with the latest odds that you can get on the future of this government under Gordon Brown. You're watching Sky News on our website, sky.com/news. From student politician to Prime Minister, see our online picture gallery of Mr. Brown. And coming up, goodbye to the old job. Mr. Brown swaps the Treasury for number 10.
The Citroën C4 can transform the impact on your wallet and the environment. With only 120 grams CO2 per kilometre, it's the lowest in its class. Citroën C4, alive with technology. Just imagine what Citroën can do for you.
Iron-Aid, the tumble dryer that helps with the ironing. From Electrolux.
In a real Italian pizzeria, the pizza has rich toppings and a crispy, thin base. And that's exactly how Pizza Ristoranti is. Wherever you are, Ristoranti, the pizzeria taste. Ristoranti by Dr. Oetker.
TravelSupermarket.com compares the rates of over 100,000 hotels, over 50 car hire companies, and millions of flights, comparing quotes from online travel agents, tour operators, and budget and charter airlines.
Cool. We need to fly to Barcelona.
As soon as possible. TravelSupermarket.com compares the market in seconds, making it easy for you to choose the best deal. TravelSupermarket.com, the price comparison site.
At Unken, we've made our yoghurt pure. So, you're free to corrupt it in any way you like. Enjoy life the Unken way. We were thinking, what if you could control time? You set how long the washing should take, not the machine. The Time Manager washer from Electrolux.
Why don't you think about your current account today?
It only takes 2 signatures to switch to Halifax. We'll do the rest. Use our switching service right now and you'll receive a huge £100 credit. Just call, go online or pop into a branch. Halifax, always giving you extra.
Any time of the day or night, you might feel like a film. So we've made getting a Sky movie even easier. It's as easy as a click. There's over 300 to choose from. Take your pick. With one tiny click, you can open up a world of fantastic film on your PC at no extra cost. It's amazing what you can fit down a broadband connection. For Sky Movies whenever you like, just go to sky.com/anytime. Pick a flick and click.
Coming up on Sky News at 6, the waiting's over. Gordon Brown takes over the top job. After a decade in power, what next for the ex-Prime Minister? And the names in the frame, who's likely to serve in Gordon's government?
Missed. As seen by Qatar Airways passengers, your 5-star airline.
Hi, it looks like there's a little bit of rain coming in tonight into Scotland. And that rain, I think, will probably not affect the flood situation that much. It's just coming into the far northwest through the night and Northern Ireland as well. It looks like we're going in for a rather cool spell of weather now for the next few days. You can see the showers around today. Wimbledon's been stopped now and again this afternoon. This cluster of showers will move away. And then there's been some sunshine trying to break through over the flood-stricken region here with a passing shower or two. And it looks like that drying spell will go on into tomorrow. But eventually on Thursday, rains welling up in the Atlantic will move in. Probably take until late Thursday before it gets over to the flooded regions of England. That's the view during Thursday morning. It's still fairly mobile and unsettled across much of the north of Europe. But notice out in the Atlantic, you see it out here, way out at the end, this is developing. It looks like it's going to run closer and closer. Friday there'll be some rain clearing away in the morning, but then Saturday it comes in. A deluge over the flooded areas.
The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.